Thing on our minds, and that's the All-Ireland football final. Since Dublin last won the All-Ireland in 1995, Kerry have won it 6 times. Since Dublin last beat Kerry in the championship in 1976, they have fallen to the kingdom 7 times. But the beauty of it is that none of that matters this Sunday. In the blue corner, the manager of the Dublin team who went closest to beating Kerry in that long losing streak, Tommy Carr. In the green and gold corner, a Kerry man who has travelled to preach the football gospel in Limerick and Laois, Liam Kerins. And keeping the peace in the middle, Donegal's Kevin Cassidy. Now, let's get started. We have heard plenty over the last few weeks about the good old days of Dublin and Kerry. But the game on Sunday features at least 2 forwards who could stand shoulder to shoulder with any of those who went before.
For his speed and strength, his skill and his work rate, I believe Bernard Brogan would be worthy of his place on any of the Dublin teams of the past.
For his vision, creativity and fielding ability, I think without doubt Colin Cooper would make it onto that great Kerry team of the 70s and 80s.
Well, I remember Bernard kind of coming onto the panel under Pillar Caffrey. I suppose the significant thing for Bernard, he had a bad knee injury when he was kind of in his late teens, and I suppose at the time he probably didn't think it, but it probably was a benefit for him because it gave him a chance to kind of develop his body physically. Before he had the injury, he was quite skinny and that, but now he's well able to look after himself.
Bernard Brogan has the gift.
He made his debut against Offaly in the championship, and I think he kind of got in late. I think someone might have got injured beforehand, and I remember how excited and how nervous he was to going into the game. He ran around. I think he was exhausted after about 20 minutes, just pure adrenaline and nervous energy. And then I think we played Laois in our next game, and he got a goal.
Here's another chance, Bernard Brogan!
And I think he celebrated he ran about 100 metres after the celebration. He actually had to go down and pretend he was injured. And I suppose that was the nature of the guy in his early career. He was full of energy.
But he's gone down injured.
My earliest memory of Colin Cooper, or the Gooch as he's known, was a 2002 league semi-final against Laois. You would have just thought nothing of Colin Cooper at that stage. He was just a tiny slip of a lad, and you would have said, this guy will never do here today. Colin was on corner forward, and I think it took him about 12 minutes, and he had a goal scored out of absolutely nothing. I think he's absolutely unique because if you see him in everyday clothes, like, you know, he's not bulked up with weights. You know, you pass him the street if you didn't know how many, you know, it's an ordinary guy. But he's absolutely just invaluable, like, you know, it seems to all come so easy to him, like, you know.
It's Coach Cooper inside the cover onto the right boot. Goal for Kerry. Bernard Brogan, is he the man to lead Dublin to their first final in 15 years?
He had a couple of challenges. Obviously, one, his father had played for Dublin, and then he had his brother that played for Dublin. So he was kind of in the shadow of those 2 guys before he even started. So I suppose a lot of people expected a lot of things very early, and he probably didn't deal with that very well.
Goal for Bernard Brogan.
At this stage in Bernard's career, the 3 kind of things that have developed the most and improved him as a footballer, firstly is his strength and his physicality. He's one of the quickest footballers around, but at the same time he can win his own high ball. His skill, he can kick the ball over the bar from with right foot or the left foot, which is a great attribute to have. And then his work rate. Without that, he was never going to be the player he's now become.
Into Brogan, Bernard Brogan. As buried.
He's now the key focal point for the Dublin attack, and if you get into a kind of important situation, he's the man you want to have on the ball.
The goal chance here for Kerry. It's the Gooch, and it's a goal.
If you're a defender on him, you just do not know what he's going to do. He can bounce it, he will solo around you, he'll take you on, he'll drop back, he'll drift out maybe to midfield at times, he'll come back in. You know, maybe he doesn't even know himself what he's going to do, you know, at times when he gets the ball.
He can get a goal here, and he does.
The reality with all the good footballers, they're still going to be dangerous no matter what you do, and that's a great way to be. You don't want the great footballers or the talented footballers to be stifled. You know, you want to see their ability and their skills come true, and that's why it's such an appetising game to see the likes of Colin Cooper one end and Bernard Brogan the other. It's a great advertisement for Gaelic football.
Yes, indeed it is. Kevin Cassidy, you've played against both of these players. How good are they?
First of all, you know, 2 exceptional footballers, and on one hand you have the Gooch, who's definitely the best player in the modern era, and questionably maybe he's the best ever, you know, and then Bernard Brogan, he's on the way to being one of the greats, you know, but I suppose the two of them, you know, they're aware of space and, you know, when to make the run and, you know, when not to make the run. And I remember picking up Bernard Brogan when he just came on the scene up in Ballybofey in a league match. You know, he's a very, very tricky customer. He knew exactly when to hold the run and, you know, when to go for the ball and showing hard for the ball. So, you know, it'll come down to Sunday who's really on top of their game out of those two.
Tommy, you know, as I said about the good old days, do we look back at it kind of with misty-eyed that the football was great, but was it that good really?
Well, I don't think the quality of it was any better than it is now. It was certainly different, and the game has evolved hugely over the last 20, 30 years and keeps evolving all the time. And indeed, this man here beside me has evolved it another little bit as well this year.
I'd say we're going to touch off that, Tommy.
And his mates. But certainly these guys that we're talking about, you know, the Gooch Cooper and Bernard Brogan and all these top-class players, they would have fitted into any era. And indeed, any of the guys from previous eras would fit into the modern game. And I think what they do have, they all have athleticism, they all have ability, they have balance, they have agility, they have coordination, and they're adaptable. So they could have performed in any era. They're all top-class players, top sports people.
Liam, as Tommy said, you know, football is a different game now, and there certainly has been a tactical evolution, I suppose, particularly by Donegal over the last 12 months. What do you make of that evolution?
The evolution involving Donegal. Well, I suppose I could put on two hats. With my punter's hat, I wouldn't be impressed with it at all. I wouldn't be a fan of the type of football that Donegal play. I wouldn't agree with the type of football that they play. But from a manager's point of view, then, when my manager's hat on, I'd have great respect for what they've achieved. You know, from a manager's point of view, it's all about it's a results business. It's all about getting results. And Donegal have got great results that they haven't got in the last 20 years, I would say. You know, winning the Ulster title, getting to an All-Ireland semi-final, within 2 points of an All-Ireland final. So, you know, the end justifies the means, I suppose, if you look at it from that point of view. And I perfectly understand from the manager's point of view, but as I say, from a punter's point of view, it's not the type of football I like watching.
But Liam, in terms of the negative criticism that Donegal's style of play has evoked, should the GA do something about it?
Well, that's the thing for the GA. I mean, to be honest with you, if you look at it, Kerry, when back in their heyday, they were flicking the ball into the back of the net, and eventually people got fed up of watching that, and, you know, it was addressed, and they went back to the punch pass. Whether they should do something about it at this stage, I mean, in fairness to Donegal, they didn't break any rules. They went out, they worked hard, they had a system, you know, they stuck to the system, they all knew what their jobs were about, and, you know, it took them an awful long way. Whether you should change the rules to counteract that, I do not know, but I would be afraid if an awful lot of teams started playing the exact same way. Because, you know, I was mentioning to Kevin there that, like, midfield used to be a huge area in Gaelic football, but, you know, it was amazing to see Donegal concede the kickouts to Dublin in the semi-final, and, you know, to take them, not to go near them until they came into their half, and then they engaged them, if you like. And, you know, that was an unbelievable sea change.
And Tommy, is it not the responsibility of any manager, like Jimmy McGuinness, to make the maximum use of his resources?
Of course it is. And every time, Marty, you know, a team comes out with something different, and Tyrone came out with their semi-packed defence, because it's only semi now, comparing it to the way it is at the minute. We said, should the GA do something about it? It's not their business to do something about it. It's up to the other teams to combat what's put in front of them. And if they're playing within the rules and they're sticking within the rules and they're coming up with game plans and all that, that's the way it should be. And we can't have this knee-jerk reaction every time, will we change the rules because we don't like what we see? I say get on with it. And if that's the way they want to play. But yeah, the fear is there that most of the teams next year, and I'd call them the mid-tier teams, because there's no point in the top teams playing like that, because they have scores and they'll get the ball up there and they will get scores. But there's no doubt in my mind that you will see a lot of the mid-tier teams playing the way Donegal play, and you can't blame them for it. When we're spectators, we're in the entertainment business. When you're a manager, you're in the results business, as Lima says, and never the twain shall meet.
Just on that, Tommy, in fairness, when Tyrone brought in as you said, their style of play, you know, there was a huge call for to bring in the mark, because when the midfielder was coming down with the ball, they were surrounding him. It didn't happen, and as you said, eventually it was sorted itself out as it moved along. So, I mean, again, I'd agree with you. But
the one thing we haven't, Marty, dealt with in the GA in terms of changing rules and making it better is the tackle.
Yeah.
We always avoid changing the tackle. There's some reason that we can't define it, and I've no doubt even on Sunday, and even in the Donegal-Dublin game, I think Dublin got 2 frees at the end, which I would have been very suspicious about or suspect about. But we have got to define a tackle. If we want to sort out the biggest problems in the GA, let's turn to the tackle.
Kevin, you've heard the criticism, not for the first time. This is your moment. What do you make of the criticism?
Well, first of all, it doesn't really bother us as players, you know, because what we did this year is we sat down, we looked at ourselves, what players we had at our disposal, and we came up with a system that we felt that would get us over the line. You know, I mean, it was a long time since we won at home in Ballybofey, and it's an awful long time since we won an Ulster title. So, although it really hurts that we're not in the All-Ireland final, you know, when we look back over the winter, you know, we're probably happy with where we've came from. You know, we're not the finished article. We know we've more work to do, and I suppose our attacking options and what have you. But you know, the name of the game is to score more on your opponents and concede less. You know what I mean? So that's just what we've been doing this year.
Yeah, but I think, you know, I think the likes of Donegal have to realise is that, and I'm sure they do, in all honesty, and they might admit it out publicly, but that formula is not going to win you an All-Ireland championship. There's another level to go with that. There's another section to go with that, and that's the attacking part of the game, because you cannot go out in big games and score 8, 9 and 10 points and expect to win those games. That's not going to happen.
Just looking at that, you know, I suppose, had we taken some of our chances, we might have been playing Kerry. I was just telling Marty early on, we'd actually fancy our chances of holding the Kerry attack with our defence, you know, and that's not being cocky or anything, it's just the way we were set up, you know what I mean? And if we were heading into this Sunday, we'd feel quite confident we could hold them, but it's all about just pushing on forward.
Kevin, but you can't put hold them when you have 13 men attacking 7 or 8 forwards. I mean, you're going to hold them. But the whole point is to go up and score yourself. There was one incident actually in the Donegal game, and Christy Toy got the ball. He was the last man to get it in the attack, but he had absolutely nowhere to goal, and he just punched the ball for the sake of punching it, because out of frustration. And I would think that if you're a forward playing for Donegal and you receive a ball, there's a level of frustration there, because there isn't backup and it takes a long time for it to come. It's very effective, but there needs to be another bit to go with it as well.
I agree with you there. You know, I suppose as Jim says, it's first year, and it's, you know, it's step one. And you know, we'll look back this year and we'll evaluate it, but going forward and going into Croke Park and playing against the best teams, you are going to be more offensive, and hopefully it'll come in the years to come.
Kevin, you haven't done bad. An Ulster title, Division 2, I think a lot of people will be very happy with that year. Yeah,
you know, as I said, when we look back and reflect, we'll be happy, but obviously disappointed we didn't get over the line against Dublin. But you know, as Tommy says, there's things to work on there. And when we go back to training field now in January, we can address those issues.
Okay, well, very soon we'll be analysing the big game itself. But before that match, there is a minor final between Dublin and Tipperary to be decided. Both teams go in full of confidence. We're looking forward to a unique Tipperary and Dublin. Kevin, if I can ask you about the Tipperary template. I mean, they've put John Evans in there as kind of a mentor. It's been quite a success, hasn't it?
It has, you know, it's working wonders. You know, they're competing well at minor and under 21 level. I know from speaking to our lads last year who beat them in under 20 semi-final, they were really impressed with how they're going about their football. And I think it's only a matter of time before we see Tipperary pushing on a senior level.
Is it a model for other counties, Tom?
It is, Marty, yeah. And, you know, it's something I would have been preaching for the last 10, 15 years. The difficulty with the counties now is they're getting in managers like Liam here and me and fellas like that for a 2-year plan. And they want to complete something in 10 years, in that 2 years. Any county now who is not up there in the top 6 or 8 teams, they've got to put in a 10-year plan and forget about this 2- and 3-year plan and getting the manager in either in the county or from outside the county. It takes 10 years to produce a team, and you have to start at the 14, 16. And I think Tipperary have won the under 14, under 16 and minor Munster titles.
They have.
And Kevin is right. You will see a Tipperary team in an All-Ireland semi-final or final shortly.
How good are Dublin Miners, Liam?
I think the Dublin Miners are very good. And having said that, they were lucky to get over Galway in the semi-final. There is a line of form there that says Tipperary have every chance against them. Tipperary beat Roscommon, Roscommon beat Galway, and Galway almost beat Dublin. But I have a feeling that while I'd love to see Tipperary win it and be rewarded for the work they've done and continue to do, I have a feeling that Dublin might be good enough to just shade it.
A winner, Tipperary or Dublin for the minor title?
I'd go Dublin.
Dublin.
I have to go Dublin as well.
2 for Dublin. Now, Tommy, you're torn between Tipperary and Dublin.
Well, I'm going to look awful bad at the end of this programme when I come to both my judgments on it. I think Dublin will win it, but love to see Tipperary win it.
Oh, you got yourself out of that one well. Okay, well, at 3:30 on Sunday, it's the main event. Dublin and Kerry, for both teams, is the end of a long road. Yes, indeed, the 12th All-Ireland final between Kerry and Dublin. But the surprising news is, well, maybe not so surprising, Paul Galvin doesn't start. What do you make of that, Kevin?
I honestly thought he would start, you know, after looking the last day, and I suppose the difference he made when he came in. But I suppose on the other hand, maybe Jack O'Connor's looking at he can make an impact when he does come on, you know. But he's a hell of a player to have on the bench.
Would you start him, Liam, as a Kerry man?
No, I can see where the management team are coming from by not starting him. I think he would give them a massive lift. He hasn't played a full championship match in 2 years, and you know, coming off the bench, he's the one player on the Kerry bench I think that could change the game. I would argue that Donncha Walsh will be more effective starting than coming off the bench. I don't think Donncha would be a player that would change the game or change the run of the game, but Paul Galvin certainly can influence a game, and he's done it. He did it effectively against Mayo, and so again, you know, if he was fully fit and playing regularly, I'd say they'd definitely start him. But I think in the circumstances, they've probably made the right decision.
What for you is the defining aspect of this final?
Well, I think the middle third is going to be crucial. With all due respect to Brian Sheehan and Anthony Maher, I think they've done really well for Kerry in the middle third. But at the start of the year, I wouldn't have said those two players would be the midfield partnership for Kerry going into an All-Ireland final. You know, David Moran and Scanlon might have been a more likely partnership at the start of the year, but they've done well. But I think the acid test is facing them on Sunday, and you know, there are problems as well insofar as the replacements. Scanlon has a problem now. I don't think he'll be involved. He's a cyst in his neck, I believe, and he's had an operation in Limerick there last week. So if he's out, and Mike Mayall-Quirk is gone from the panel, kind of at a you know, towards the semi-final stage, he left the panel, which was a bit strange. And then you're looking at Owen Brosnan, who's also carrying an ankle injury into the game. He would be again supposed to be the option to play in the middle of the field. And then you're down to Kieran Donaghy coming out to midfield. So. You know, I just have concerns for Kerry in that area. If anything goes wrong, or if there are any injuries there, then, you know, because if you look at Dublin from the other side, they have Ross McConnell to come in, they have Eamon Fennell to come in, and they have two good midfielders starting. So the middle third is crucial. I think if the middle third is won by Kerry, or even 50-50, their forwards are good enough. Equally, I think Dublin can take the Kerry backline if they get enough of the ball. So I think the middle third is going to have a huge bearing on the game.
Do you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't put it all down to the middle third. I think it's, you know, when you say the middle third, Liam, I don't know if you're referring to the midfield.
Midfield and back, but half backs, half forwards.
Well, yeah. I'd be more inclined to think that both teams will end up with similar amount of possession. I can guarantee you at the end of this game, you will see that the possession stakes will be something similar. It's then how a team attacks, how efficient they are with the ball. And when they're efficient, then it's their shot selection. Do they make the right shot selection? So I think, yeah, there will be a crowd around the middle of the pitch. Will there be a lot of clean ball caught out there? I don't think so, not a whole lot. There isn't any more anyway. And teams are coming up with ways of stopping the opposition, and really good midfielders claiming that ball. So I think it's both attacks and it's both defences, how they respectively cope with each other. And I just have the feeling that Kerry's attack are a little bit more potent, much more experienced. I think there's a big game to come in Declan O'Sullivan. I think there's a big game to come in Donaghy, who hasn't really fired this year.
No, he hasn't. No, not at all.
And you know, when you take your attention off the likes of Gooch, or put a lot of attention on him, there's always somebody else to pop up for Kerry. They're dangerous, and they're very experienced. And I just feel that the Dublin backs will struggle.
Just on the middle third, Matty, something that's going to be really important, Stephen Cluxton's kick out, you know, how Kerry deal with them, because, you know, we chose to let them have the ball because we felt that he was that good, he could still pick the man out, you know, not midfielders, but, you know, Paul Flynn and Brian Cullen, and he starts their attack, so it'll be interesting how Kerry deal with him.
And in fairness, in a point of that, 3 years ago, Kerry targeted Cluxton's kickouts, and within 20 minutes it was all over. You know, they put pressure on his kickouts and they collapsed without.
But I think, Liam, also you're quite correct. But I think a lot of teams now have targeted Cluxton's kickouts, and he is superb at it. If you give him the few seconds at all, he'll do it.
He's learned from it, and they're varying it.
If you delay his kick out, then you can mark them up. They're not as effective as they were because teams are really switched onto them. In fact, I was surprised how long it took some teams to switch onto them.
And funny enough, I think that if he goes with an orthodox kick out to the middle of the field, Dublin could get more change out of it. But he may not do that. That's something that we'll find out.
Would you move Kieran Donaghy out to midfield, or would you still leave him as the target man at full forward?
Like Tommy said, I think he's due a big game. You know, he's having a quiet season, but you know, the All-Ireland final is a place to produce your football. You know, and I feel any day Kieran drifts towards the middle of the field, it's Kerry's and bother that day, and he's not really effective out there. I'd rather see him on the edge of the square.
I think they become predictable because Cooper, and if it's Declan O'Sullivan that goes in, they want a certain type of ball. That's Colin Cooper can win it overhead, but but he wants a certain type of
Whereas
ball.
Donaghy's
Whereas
in there.
Donaghy's in there, you can put it in
that's true.
different ways.
And is the difference between the two teams experience? You know, as we said at the very beginning of the programme, Kerry's success over the last 10, 15 years, and indeed their history. Is that the difference, experience?
Yeah, I think there's experience both on the sideline and on the pitch. Kerry definitely have the experience that you need to go and do your business on the day. And the one thing you can guarantee on Sunday is that Kerry will produce what they're capable of producing. There will be no shortfall from Kerry's point of view. So Dublin will have to produce what they need to produce to win it. And Kerry won't be handing this to them. Dublin will have to go and win the game, and I'd be very confident about Kerry producing what they're capable of producing. It's a question then of whether Dublin are able to counter.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if experience is going to be all the difference. I mean, you're looking at a Dublin team now who've been performing at a very high level over the last 4 or 5 years. They've got all the hard lessons, all the hard knocks. They've been through the mill. Of course, Kerry, the more experienced team. There's guys there with 5, 6, 7 All-Ireland medals. There's a Dublin team there with absolutely none. I think it's going to come down to the quality of the footballer. And obviously, Marty, we all know in the GA is the hunger, the desire. Who actually wants it more when it comes to the last time? They did.
2 weeks ago.
They did, absolutely.
And are there still question marks, do you think, Tommy, over this Dublin team, particularly mentally?
Yeah, of course there are. And there will always be question marks over a team who hasn't fully gone there and actually achieved and won the All-Ireland. We had question marks over Cork there until they actually came and did it. And we actually have more question marks over them again now because they're not there on Sunday. So until Dublin actually go out and do it and face the likes of Kerry and beat the likes of Kerry and do it convincingly, I think there's going to be question marks. But they're improving all the time. Their improvement has been incremental for the last 2 or 3 years. And in the way that they beat Donegal.
In fairness on that, Martin, you know, that's one of the things we would have spoken about before our game. You know, the longer that you stay with Dublin, the pressure turns on them. But the day we played them, they stuck to their game plan. They just kept going, and they ground out the result.
Let me just ask you about the Kerry full back line, because some people think maybe there's a weakness there, that they haven't even been tested yet. What would be your thoughts on that, Kevin?
Yeah, well, I suppose, you know, Mark's playing there full back, isn't he? But I suppose he'll pick up Bernard Brogan. But, you know, it's always been said about Kerry full back line in the last couple of years, but then on the big days, they always produce the goods. So, you know, it's dangerous to say that now at this time of the week, but, you know, I suppose if Mark can get a handle of Bernard Brogan, they're kind of halfway there.
He's done a good job on Bernard Brogan in previous years as well, but he has to come back from what I saw. You know, he got a fair run around in the semi-final by Moran from Mayo, and he has to return to that. But I would back him to do it because he's a super player and he doesn't have too many bad games back to back.
You're looking at a defence now that are, is there 5 of them over 30, 31 years of age?
Yeah.
I'm interested to see actually, Marty, on Sunday what Kerry took out of the Dublin-Donegal game. So let alone the man-to-man marking. I'm interested to see do they bring back 2 or 3, because Dublin didn't cope well with your defence in the semi-final. So will Kerry, or are they too proud to adopt another county's tactics? That's going to be an interesting one.
There's an All-Ireland title at stake, Tommy. I'm going to start off asking you, prediction, in a word, Kerry or Dublin for this All-Ireland?
I don't like to say this, but obviously we're all being very impartial here this evening. And honest, yeah. I just think Kerry are going to sneak it. I just think they have the quality footballers, but I really hope they don't.
You should go into politics, Tommy Carr. Kevin, in a word, Kerry or Dublin?
Being honest, I would love to see Dublin win it because I think it'd be great for the game, but I just feel that Kerry might have too much in the day, especially if Cooper and Donaghy click. 2
for Kerry, by gosh. Liam Kerins, a Kerry man from Tralee.
Yeah, I think Kerry's experience, and I hope Kerry's experience will get them there, but I have to say Dublin have a big shout in this game, and I think it'll be very interesting.
Okay, unanimous decision here in the committee room. Okay, we'll find out soon if you're all right, gentlemen. Throw-in is now about 88 hours away. Of course, you can see and hear everything throughout the day on RT Television, online and on Radio 1, including Take Your Point with Damien Lawler, which is at the later time of